I think I might try and cut this as the first video I am going to make on this separate channel here, talking about essentially fitness over 40 for guys, and doing so in a very easy, simple, straightforward manner with no drugs and no crazy complicated diets, and really just a very easy way of making fitness sustainable, effective, and efficient for the vast majority of people out there. Now, full context, I've been doing this my whole life. I've been working with a lot of people. I've gone down many different rabbit holes. And as soon as I say I've been working out since I was a young person at the age of like 16, 17, and haven't taken any weeks off or whatever, people immediately start rolling their eyes and say, well, that's easy for you. You've been doing it your whole life. What about someone else that's maybe a guy who's middle-aged and I want kind of get a head start or a boost? And so therefore they justify the need or necessity for complicated programs, expensive gym memberships, really crazy fad diets, and or going the next step further, which is creating what I like to say is some sort of subscription model for your hormones and things of the like. And what I will say straight up front though, guys, is, and this is really the pure motivation I wanted to make this channel. One, of course, because I work with so many people. I have different channels, YouTube outlets that I've kind of commented on, but this one I really want to make tailored towards the man specifically who is getting into middle age. I say over 40, but I find guys even as young in their 30s that kind of have the same kind of thoughts or going down these same kind of rabbit holes. And unfortunately, I think the world of social media overcomplicates these. Some things out of purpose and some things are unintentional. And I'd say the vast majority of this are really kind of in some way, the blind leading the blind, even though those people are seeing great results. And what I mean by that, there are people that follow complicated diets, rigorous training cycles, or are going on under legit hormone cycles, like I'll keep saying, and they find that has worked for them, so they're gonna push that on everybody else. And I can tell you guys, I'm nothing special. I don't have super secret genetics or anything like that. I've seen my body adjust where I worked out 4, 5, 6+ years, not a whole lot was happening, following straight things to a T, and then I made some subtle adjustments till I got to the point I got through now. Also, I can bypass literally almost 10 years of just saving you guys a lot of horror stories about going under various diet archetypes and deep dives into nutrition and exercise, going as far as to getting my PhD and working in the field of kinesiology, exercise science for a living. So I'm surrounded by a lot of information, and what I want to do for you, and I think for most people, is to really bring it down to a surface level, because what I've discovered is very similar to what Bruce Lee famously quoted. I believe when he was younger, he said something to the effect of, when he was young, first starting martial arts, a punch was a punch, a kick was a kick. Then as he got more educated and got more into the martial arts, he started essentially overcomplicating things, to then becoming full circle to where he initially started, that yes, a punch is a punch, a kick is a kick. Let's absorb what is useful and discard what is not. And that part of that has to go with just illogical thinking and complicated thinking. And that's essentially what I'm doing here. If you guys are familiar with Bruce Lee a little bit, he also made his famous martial art was called Jeet Kune Do, which exemplified that philosophy of taking what was useful and discarding what is not, to give and create the most efficient martial art in his ways that he's unfortunately kind of passed away before he could really solidify that. But that same kind of philosophy is what I approach with my clients and also myself. The reason I brought that example is my own brother once coined that for me, because when he worked out with me one time, other people said the same thing. They would say, this is kind of like your own little Jeet Kune Do, because people are often surprised when they see me go in a gym or watching me do home workouts, because you do not need all this elaborate stuff. You can get by with very little stuff too. That's the other thing. And people are always surprised when they hear me saying things like, I have no idea what I'm going to do for the day, other than like a minor template and conceptual approach. There's kind of a plan, no question. But I'm not worried about the exact number of sets, exact number of reps, and even the weight on the bar. Yes, progressive overload is important to an extent, but for the vast majority of people, it really overcomplicates things to a certain point. If you have a specific goal, if you're competing for something, yes, that is good. And of course, I'm talking about, yes, you can have a goal. But what I have found for the vast majority of people, and also looking at people I've looked up to, going back as early as my 20s, when I find people that are in their 40s, 50s, and 60s, and even 70s and beyond, I was always keenly looking at those older than me. They always had a few common factors that were always constant, regardless of the program and diet that they were following. And that's essentially what I share with you guys here on this channel. First thing sounds so cliched, but it is the truth, and it's one of the biggest obstacles that kind of goes back to this overcomplication theme here, and that is just the idea of consistency. So I've worked with many clients. This is almost on a, I would say 80+% of the case basis when I work with people. I work with people one-on-one, and when they start describing their background, their knowledge of exercise and history of exercise, people tell me they've gone down various camps, they've tried various training programs, various training apps, And ultimately, while they know the basics, foundations of exercise, or let's say resistance training, whatever, a lot of them actually go on to get personal training certifications and things like that. They are still left kind of squandering and feeling somewhat confused and not sure what to really listen to. And when you start breaking down even further, what I have found is these people like to study a lot and overcomplicate things a lot, but the consistency was never there. So a very common point after I listen to someone maybe for 20 or 30 minutes, not always, but there's a lot of the times where once I kind of probe and say, well, how long have you actually just been keeping to some sort of set schedule? The vast majority of people will start being honest and be like, well, maybe it's 1 or 2 months. They might say it's a year, 2 years. Even that might be relatively young in the grand scheme of things, especially if they're just kind of learning and they're in a later age. But oftentimes they'll say something, well, I've been working out since I was younger, but then there's weeks off, there's months off, and there's actually even years off. And my point is you're not gonna make true progress and keep this to be a habit that is really integrated in your lifestyle versus something that you have to kind of force in. The next point is that people are working way too hard and or doing something that they do not necessarily have any kind of connection with. So very often the most popular programs, especially for guys, is something that is highly rigorous, highly disciplined, and something that also might be in a high level of intensity. So that could be CrossFit, could be some, generally it's like cardio-based stuff. It used to be at least like Orange Theory. Back in the day, it was a lot of guys I knew did P90X and swore by that, or boot camp style things that were put on by Navy SEALs, or it just could be some other strength-based program they got off the internet. And again, when I probe people a little bit deeper, I start to find that this starts to be something that's an exercise in futility because most people just simply cannot stick to it, they cannot adhere to it, and primarily that's because it is not matching with something they somehow have some sort of little inkling of enjoyment. And there is a point where your body is just going to start sending you various signals and reasons to stop exercising and make excuses and don't do it because it's just not something that is attainable. And I'm here to tell you that the approach that I've shown most people is very attainable. It is very easy, in my opinion, once you get some momentum. And the great thing about it is if there's a plethora of exercises and ways to approach this, that if there is something you do not like, you just try something else and you plug and play that, as if you were kind of swapping out a computer program. And the last thing is that I often find that people are totally disconnected with their body and their diet and their lifestyle. What I mean by that, I heard this story, I think it was literally last weekend. I hear stories of this all the time, but I was at a get-together at a bunch of families' houses. There's a guy there, very successful guy. He's a doctor. He was talking about this app he's following, and I've heard this story many, many times, but type A personality, and again, he's a doctor, so he should know, he knows something about health, physical fitness, and he wasn't necessarily out of shape at all. He had a very great, gym he was showing me, and he was telling me that he essentially needs to have an app to tell him what to eat, and he basically eats nothing all day until dinner time, even though he was kind of calorie counting and kind of saving up his calories for this meal. And I thought again in my head, I heard this so many times, I'm like, do you really need to rely on an app to tell you, when to eat or when to exercise or what to actually do to move your body? Wouldn't it be great if you do not need those things and you can effortlessly go into your workout with enjoyment, excited to kind of go in the workout versus dreading it or trying to bust yourself through that workout, which again, that's great if you like that and nothing's wrong with those workouts and pushing yourself, of course, you kind of have to push yourself. But I can also tell you that you do not have to starve yourself to death. Best case scenario is you're doing a workout and your diet is basically feeding each other. You're eating to move, you're eating to propel your workout, and there is zero thought, more or less. I mean, there's some thought, I guess there's some kind of model, like, yeah, there's some things that are, of course, trigger food, some things you probably shouldn't overindulge in to a certain extent. But my point is, you're never going away feeling hungry or deprived or daydreaming about certain meals because you're putting the effort where it counts here, and then you're making up for it in your diet and lifestyle choices. So this is just the start of the channel. If at all you guys are interested in what I'm saying, I'm not doing any kind of a paid consultation. This is not a sales pitch of the like. I'm simply just wanting to get feedback from people in this channel, in this community, and what they want to see. So definitely let me know. I will put a link down below that just schedules a basic consultation with me. We're not doing anything. I'm not going to try and sell you anything. I literally just want to hear what you guys have to say, and specifically just want to hear you guys out. And if I can give you a little bit of feedback, a little bit of tip in that brief period of time, I certainly will do my best to do that. So I don't think this video will get many views, but hopefully I will see more of you guys in the near future. And let me know down below if there's other topics and questions you guys have, because I will make a video out that and try to deliver what I promise here. Thank you guys for watching.